Good morning, guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm so stoked to have you here. If you are new here, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button down below. Ding the little bell, you'll stay up to date with my videos. So I thought today, mosquito, sorry, we could dedicate the vlog to talking about calcium. Calcium is such an important mineral to our body's health. In fact, 1 to 2% of our total body weight is calcium. Obviously, it is used to build our bones. It is also used in nerve transmission, in muscular relaxation, in blood coagulation, and even glycogen storage. And as always, my neighbor's lawn care overlaps with my video. So the recommended daily intake for calcium in the United States sits at 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams per day. An interesting phenomenon that most Americans aren't aware of is that calcium recommendations vary wildly from government to government. Recommended intake is much lower in many parts of Europe and the UK. Could it be because the United States has vested interests in the dairy industry? Why, yes, I think it could be. But fortunately, when it comes to calcium on plant-based or vegan diets, we actually don't have to resort to conspiracy theories of collusion between the dairy industry and the government. We just have to rely on facts. And one of the most important facts to remember when we're talking about calcium is that plants have calcium too. What? Plants have calcium too. If you think about it, for most of human evolution and prehistory, we were just out in our natural environment. We were gathering and probably doing a little bit of hunting, but we never drank milk after weaning. It was only relatively recent in human history that we started consuming dairy products, and that is probably why in most ethnicities around the world, 50 to 100% of those populations are lactose intolerant. And in many populations around the world, people aren't drinking milk, and they actually have stronger bones than Americans do. So what the heck is going on? Well, you see, calcium, like most of life, is about balance. You have to balance your calcium intake with your calcium loss. This tends to happen naturally on a whole plant food diet. We're eating lots of calcium-rich foods, and we're not exposing ourselves to many things that leach calcium from our bodies. But this balance doesn't happen naturally on a standard Western diet, which is why a lot of people eating an omnivorous diet that includes dairy and who are getting up to 1,500 milligrams of calcium a day end up in a negative calcium situation. They're losing more calcium than they're taking in. So no matter our diet, it is vitally important to make sure that we are avoiding calcium leaching foods and activities. First up is too much phosphorus consumption. Phosphorus is a natural and vital part of human diets, but too much leads to calcium leaching. High phosphorus foods are animal products and a lot of junk food, especially sodas. Get rid of those foods immediately. Animal protein is also highly correlated with calcium leaching and loss and brittle bones. Excessive dietary sodium results in a lot of calcium loss from the body. Each sodium atom is excreted with a calcium atom. So if we're eating a standard Western diet that's rich in processed foods and lots of added salt, there's a really good chance that we're getting way too much sodium. I've made some videos about salt and sodium. I can link those up above and down below in the description. For most people, aim to get less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. Caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco all leach calcium from the body. Now, alcohol and smoking, I don't see any benefits to those that could outweigh the risks. But caffeine, on the other hand, has proven to have some benefits. So if you're consuming caffeine from healthy sources like a cup or two a day of black coffee or a cup or two of tea per day, that's all good. Don't stress. But keep in mind that in addition to caffeine, coffee and teas contain tannins, which also blocks the absorption of many minerals like calcium, iron, and zinc. You can get around that issue by having your tea or coffee an hour before you have a calcium, iron, or zinc-rich breakfast. And that brings us to some of the other popular anti-nutrients like phytates and oxalates. So we've talked about phytates quite a bit over the years. They're in beans, grains, nuts, and seeds, and they go away when you pre-soak these foods. However, research also indicates that phytates are also incredibly good for us. So whether or not we want to completely try to eliminate phytates from our diet is a question that I'm not sure I even bother to ask. Oxalates, on the other hand, can cause a bit more of an issue. Oxalates are found abundantly in foods like spinach, beets, including beet tops, Swiss chard, figs, and amaranth, as well as plenty of other foods. There are lists online, you can find them. So oxalates bind preferentially to calcium, which means that if you're eating lots of oxalate-rich foods, it can definitely affect the amount of calcium that you're able to absorb. This is part of why I do not recommend anyone eat spinach every single day. Guys, you gotta cycle your greens. Go back to the Lifestyle Basics video. Eat a variety of foods. If we're doing our dietary due diligence of making sure that we're balancing our intake of calcium with our intake of potentially calcium leaching foods, then on a plant-based or vegan diet, we really don't have to worry, because your body in its miraculous wisdom keeps a really close eye on calcium just like it does every other nutrient. If we're low in calcium, that's registered by the parathyroid gland, and it produces parathyroid hormone, which activates vitamin D. When vitamin D is activated, it increases intestinal absorption of calcium. And bingo, our levels go up. So that's another form of balance that we need to think about when we're talking about healthy diet and lifestyle, making sure that we're getting the nutrients that complement and enhance calcium absorption too. Most minerals work synergistically with calcium, and that's why it's best to get our calcium and other minerals from whole plant foods. They show up the way that they're intended to, so that they can work together. When we're talking about vitamin D, the best source is from the sun, but I know that a lot of us are scared of sun exposure for one reason or the other, and or we live at latitudes that don't allow us to get adequate vitamin D from sunlight. Those people should take a relatively low dose vitamin D3 supplement. A lot of plant milks, like this one that Levi buys, is fortified with quite a bit of calcium, and it's also fortified with vitamin D. However, when I was looking at the ingredient label, I realized that it's vitamin D2, which can actually be toxic to humans and isn't the active form of vitamin D. So I'm wondering what's up with that. That's all well and good, you may be saying, but where do I actually get the calcium on a plant-based diet? If you have these kinds of questions, again, I implore you, purchase this book, Becoming Vegan, the Comprehensive Edition. You'll have all of your questions and more answered. Or keep pestering me for videos. I'll eventually get around to it, I promise. Fortunately, there are tons of calcium-rich whole plant foods for you to choose from, and a lot of them you're probably already eating. Everything that I eat today is going to be focused on the whole plant food calcium superstars. I'm gonna do my best to get recommended daily serving of calcium without fortified foods. So for my calcium maximizing breakfast, I am going to be making, what else? A smoothie with, what else? Kale. You see, kale is in the family of low oxalate greens. So things like kale, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, mustard greens are low in oxalates, which means that 40 to 60% of the calcium that is in this beautiful leaf of kale will be absorbed by my glorious intestines. And that, my dears, is amazing, especially when you consider that only 30% of the calcium found in cow's milk is absorbed by your intestines. Milk ain't got nothing on kale. Almonds can also be a great source of calcium, and your ability to absorb that calcium goes up significantly if you soak them beforehand. That's because it deactivates the phytic acid. Oh, kale. Chia seeds are another calcium superstar, so I am going to grind these up in my spice grinder just like I do my flax seeds and throw them in the smoothie as well. My organic Unsulfured blackstrap molasses, in addition to being a great source of iron, 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses also contains 10% of the daily recommended value of calcium. I'll also be using bananas and a little bit of ginger hiding over here to give my smoothie a nice flavor. Shall we get blending? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I put some weird stuff in this. I was genuinely nervous about the flavor combination. I thought it was gonna be unpalatable and gross. But this is one of the best smoothies I've ever had. And I just realized that I didn't put the chia seeds in it. Take 2. I'm just kidding. It tastes the same, but now it has more calcium. If you're anything like me at this point in the discussion about calcium, you're starting to get really frustrated. Because I get it. I have accepted the doctrine that plants contain calcium too. I have accepted that I can get calcium from whole plant foods or fortified sources on a vegan diet. Both are legitimate. But what I struggle to do, even with plant-based doctors, is to get a firm, committal statement of how much GD calcium do I need every day. Okay, so this is when we have to start making informed decisions for ourselves because there's a lot of contradictory information out there. Some plant-based doctors and experts say, get the 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day. As long as this is calcium coming from whole plant foods or fortified foods on a healthy diet that's avoiding calcium leaching behaviors and dietary choices, then I don't see anything wrong with that. But I noticed that a lot of people on plant food diets and whole plant food diets, especially that don't rely on fortified foods, can start to freak out about their calcium needs because they go on a program like Chronometer and keep track of their daily intake, and oh God, they're only getting like 600, 700, 800 milligrams of calcium per day. Taking that into consideration, many other plant-based doctors have reviewed the copious amounts of research on calcium and overall health and bone health, and they have determined that 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day is like an erroneous number. Who came up with that? The conspiracy theorist in me says that it was people trying to sell you milk, and I think she might be right. So I want to read you a quick quote from a research paper that came out in 1978. Many official bodies give advice on desirable intakes of calcium, but no clear evidence of calcium deficiency disease in otherwise normal people has ever been given. In Western countries, the usual calcium intake is of the order of 800 to 1,000 milligrams per day. In many developing countries, figures of 300 to 500 milligrams per day are found. There is no evidence that people with such a low intake have any problems with bones or teeth. It seems likely that normal people can adapt to a normal calcium balance on calcium intakes as low as 150 to 200 milligrams per day, and that this adaptation is sufficient even in pregnancy and lactation. Inappropriate concern about calcium intake may divert attention and resources from more important nutritional problems. So that was from research done on populations all over the world, where they looked at their daily calcium intake and the health of their bones and teeth and overall health. The human body is adaptable. If you're giving it the right inputs, it's able to balance itself. A lot of people want to get defensive about that and say, oh my God, you're setting people up for osteoporosis. They're going to get osteoporosis. But let's think about this. Even in the United States, where people are having 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of calcium every day, they are still getting osteoporosis. So something's not adding up here. However, part of the EPIC Oxford study, which was a darn good study, if I do say so myself, did find that people on vegan diets had 30% more fractures than those eating an omnivorous diet. While I was researching this, I found an article that was written by Dr. Thomas Campbell. He says in one European study, the Epic Oxford, vegans had a 30% higher risk of fracture compared to meat eaters, but they also had a significantly lower calcium intake than all other groups. When researchers only considered vegans who ate at least 525 milligrams of calcium a day, they found that vegans had no risk of fracture. In other words, the increased risk of fracture disappeared when consuming at least 525 milligrams per day. If you're getting more than, say, 500, 600, 700 milligrams of calcium per day, it appears that that's sufficient. I have my daily calcium goal set for about 650 milligrams per day on Chronometer when I ever use Chronometer. And every single time, even when I'm not purposely eating calcium-rich foods, I achieve that goal easily. Of course, there is much more to bone health than simply calcium intake, and that will be the subject of a future video. Just remember, again, please, whole plant foods, whole plant foods, whole plant foods. Cheers to that. All right, so just in time for lunch, we got the gas truck outside backing up and revving his engine, and we got a helicopter going over as usual, so bear with me. I made this amazing salad. I don't want to call it beautiful because I covered it in like black gunk and now all of the colors are just less than vibrant, but it's full of calcium-rich vegetables like cucumber and cabbage, and then on top of it I put calcium-rich black turtle beans, and then we have calcium-treated masa harina flour, and the dressing on the salad is like calcium gold. So there's the black tahini, which is made out of unhulled sesame seeds. So when the sesame seeds are hulled, they lose a lot of their calcium content. When they are unhulled, they have tons of calcium. Bye, gas truck. Then I ground up and added about a tablespoon of poppy seeds. So poppy seeds are profoundly high in calcium, but they're also high in morphine, like it's what heroin is made out of. So I don't want to give myself or anyone else an opium high, or do I? Anyway, a tablespoon of poppy seeds divided into multiple servings is absolutely fine. It's nowhere near the upper limit. So I added that, lemon juice, parsley, which is also high in calcium, and then 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses. And this was another one of those combos where I was like, is this gonna be good? I don't know, but I tried it. It was amazing. So I have this serving of the super high calcium salad. I'm gonna have this for lunch, and then I made plenty so we can have it for dinner too. Before I get started on our calcium-packed dinner, I want to address a question that a lot of people have, which is, should I take calcium supplements? So in case I haven't made it like obvious, I do believe that plants are the best medicine. Thank you, Dr. Greger, for making this shirt. Nutritionfacts.org. If you're just vehemently dedicated to being a junk food vegan who refuses to like eat whole plant foods and plenty of greens and beans and whole grains and nuts and seeds, and you don't eat any fortified foods like plant milks or fortified juices, then yeah, maybe take a supplement, but it's not ideal. For most of us who are eating at least mildly healthy diet, there's a lot of research to suggest that we don't need supplements. And there's also a lot of research to suggest that calcium supplements might do us more harm than good. When calcium supplements are used by themselves, they can increase your risk of heart attack. When calcium supplements are used in conjunction with vitamin D3, apparently that risk goes down a little bit, but your risk of calcifying your soft tissues goes up too, especially if the calcium and the vitamin D are in mega doses. So if you do choose to supplement with calcium, take a relatively small dose, because overdoing it on supplemental calcium is a real issue. Okay, so on that note, I am going to go get my calcium from whole plant foods. Shall we? It is dinner time. Made some multicolored quinoa because it is one of the grains that is kind of more or less a little bit high-ish in calcium. You got black turtle beans, which are a bean that are decently high in calcium as well. And then I have my calcium-rich salad with my super calcium-packed black gold dressing, and the recipe for that is going to be up on my Lilikoi Hawaii Facebook page. So head over there and get that recipe if you'd like to try it. It's surprisingly good for being so healthy, I have to say. All right, you guys, so that is it for today's information-packed vlog. If you guys have any more questions about calcium, you need to ask somebody else, because I'm done. I'm just kidding. You can comment down below. I'll see what I can do. And as always, until next time, make better choices for yourself. No one's gonna do it for you, and take really, really good care of your precious self. I will see you guys very soon.